The financial flywheel. The financial flywheel is a concept I've come up with through probably hundreds of conversations I've had with clients, and there are patterns of success as people are building wealth. And what you can really see is that as people are building wealth, there's a repetitive formula. And whether they're young and have a lot of money or they're older and they have a lot of money, there's patterns. And so I've gathered those, put it in the best concept that I can think of, and I'm going to share it with you. And the idea is that we'll introduce the overall concept today. And then in future segments, I'm going to dive deeper into each one of the pieces of it, and we'll keep revisiting it so we can keep that flywheel going and improving your wealth and growing so that you have essentially freedom. At the end of the day, what you want to do is feel like you have a lot of money and that you have financial freedom, because not feeling like you're financially free is really brutal. So that's the hard part. So we're going to go into this. As you'll notice, that we've got an investment arm, a life insurance arm, and a mortgage brokerage arm. And what that allows us to do is have comprehensive wealth advisory. So because we're licensed in all the products, we can have conversations that go right through everything, and we don't have to stop. You don't have to deal with this on anything, but it allows us to have those conversations so that we can have meaningful work on the financial side. And before we get into it, just know that we try not to make errors or omissions. There are forward-looking statements that may not come true when we're dealing with investments, economics, things like that. This is not a solicitation or recommendation of securities, nor is it financial advice. We don't provide tax or legal advice, so we always recommend you seek the help of a licensed professional prior to taking on any of this information or acting on it. And lastly, disclaimer, I'm Trevor Dale. I'm the CEO of TKW Wealth. I'm registered as a portfolio manager at TKW Wealth Management. I'm a mortgage broker at TKW Wealth Mortgages, license 13359. I'm also a life insurance advisor with TKW Wealth Life Insurance. Back to it. So you're trying to figure out, where do you want to go in retirement? What's your retirement going to look like? What's your life going to look like until you retire? What are some of the things that you want to accomplish? Um, those are sometimes difficult questions to answer. And so we help people when we're doing financial planning figure out what it is that they want. And there's a whole way that we uncover that stuff. So, but once you do figure it out, our job is to act as a family CFO. So if you're the CEO and your job is to brainstorm and be the visionary of your family, figure out where you want to go, what you want it to look like, the things you want to accomplish, the goals, the values, everything else like that. As the CFO for your family, our job is to get you there financially. And so that's a really important role. Now, we're in this. Uh, Look for one big takeaway. If I've read a book, if I've done a webinar, attended a webinar, attended a seminar, podcast, book on tip, whatever it is that I'm doing, I always look for one big takeaway that I can implement. And that's the whole goal out of this. So if you can take one thing out of this, it's a win. And our whole goal here is to help you understand how wealth is generated. We often see it, and so we've used the analogy of a flywheel. It's evolved over time, but this is the best one that we've come up with so far. So having a flywheel, if you're seeing this visually through video, you'll see the image where there's a big metal, heavy wheel, like flat disc that's attached to a bicycle that is attached to the chain. Now, uh, the whole role of a flywheel is it's big and it's heavy, and the reason is that what you want to do is to increase the whatever machine's momentum. So you're putting power into it, that's creating movement in it, and that will, because of the size of the mass, the greater the mass, the more momentum it has. That allows you to continue that momentum during disruptions of power or movement as well. So that will smooth out the whole process. Now, what does that mean in terms of financial? Well, there are a couple of things that you have to do. You have to make money first off, right? And I want to go back for a second and just talk about the concept of the flywheel. Let's go back and talk about it as it is, as a bicycle. And what does it mean, right? Well, if you're not familiar with the flywheel, it's a concept that helps create momentum. But imagine riding a bicycle and you're pedaling, 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 and you're pedaling uphill, right? The minute you stop pedaling, that bicycle is going to slow down incredibly because you're going uphill and all your weight is being pushed back down on you. But if you have a flywheel on your bicycle, as you can see in the image here, it is moving fast and it will continue to move because of the momentum. So when you stop pedaling, it's going to continue it's going to continue the momentum of the bicycle just a little bit further. And so that helps you to keep things going when things are going uphill or they require constant input. And what it does is it stores energy, because it's going to take you a little bit more energy to get it going, but then it's storing that energy and keep it. All you have to do is keep it going, and then it will release its energy when you stop putting energy into it. So it'll continue as momentum. And so financially, what we're trying to do is build up that momentum. And we're doing that because we want things to go very quickly. We want things to be on point. We want our money to grow. We want to feel financially free. We want to be able to go on vacation and not worry. We want to be able to spend on vacations and spend on items that we feel are important. And so, how do we do that? Well, let's put in the financial flywheel. And the first thing you have to do is make money, because if you don't have money, you can't keep it and you can't grow it, and there's no point in protecting anything because you don't have anything. So if you have a job, you have money coming in. If you've received an inheritance or a gift for a down payment on a house, if you have found $1 on the street, that is money coming in. The next job is, for every dollar that comes in, you want to save as much of that money as you can, and you want to keep it. So if you've made money, you want to keep it. If you have money now that you've kept, you can start to grow that money. And I'm going to reiterate this a couple times. The whole purpose is for you to grow your money at faster than the rate of inflation. I'm going to say that again. How fast do you need to grow your money? Faster than the rate of inflation. Because if you're not growing your money faster than the rate of inflation, say you have a certain amount of money today that can buy a certain amount of products. If you're not keeping up with inflation, that money is not going to buy you as much in the future. And what do I mean by that? Let's look at house prices over the last 5 years. They've gone up incredibly. And so your down payment that was 5% then, or 10%, is now less because the prices of houses have gone up with inflation, and that's inflation. There's a good thing, because if you own assets, they can go up with inflation. And if you don't own assets and it's just sitting in cash, it is losing money to inflation, and the ability for it to do things for you is shrinking. So you have to make money, you have to keep the money that you make, you have to grow that money faster than the rate of inflation, and you also have to protect it. Now, it's not, you do have to make it first and you have to keep it second. You can work on growing and protecting at the same time, but then you have to go back and make more. You have to keep what you're making, you have to grow it, you have to protect it. Round and around and around and around it goes. And you have to keep looking at this over and over and over again. You have to keep this flywheel moving so that if you do take a break, you're well protected, it will keep moving, and you will get to where you're going for not only today, but in retirement. What does this do? It takes your wealth, whatever you have today, and it grows it bit by bit by bit by bit. And when you're growing your wealth over time, it's allowing you to create financial freedom. And I heard this interesting concept. I can't remember who created it, but it's called lifestyle investing. And the whole concept is that if you're investing to cover off your lifestyle expenses, what do I mean by that? Well, if you have an expense, say a cell phone bill, and it's going to cost you $70 a month, and you take money and you put it in investments that are paying dividends, and they now generate $70 a month. I'm excluding taxes just for the sake of this conversation, but let's say it's generating $70 a month. That dividend is now paying for your cell phone bill. Your next goal would be to make more money, keep more money, and then grow it so that it can pay dividends or grow at a rate that is covering off your next bill. Maybe it's a car loan, maybe it's some groceries, maybe whatever it is. But the whole thing is that your investments are paying for your lifestyle, and that in itself creates financial freedom. And I always had a great thought about that. I'm like, that's a good way to think about it, where no matter what you're doing, you're trying to grow it so that it can pay for your lifestyle expenses, right? That's amazing. And at the end of the day, you will feel free because you have choices, you have options. Now let's talk about this for a minute in a little bit more detail in each silo. So again, in future segments, we're going to talk about each of these pieces of the flywheel, the make, keep, grow, and protect money. But let's talk about make money for a second. Let's dive into it. If you're making money, let's just assume that we're talking about a job, or even if you're running a business. You can always increase your skills so that you could do more. If you have more skills, more qualifications, more degrees, whatever it is, you can then ask for more money because you're more qualified to do the job. Um, let's skip over the next one and just talk about performance. If you're more qualified to do the job, hopefully you can perform better in your job. If you're doing more performance in your job and you're either making your company more money or you're saving the money, you can ask for more pay. Makes sense, right? Um, the other, so if you're constantly, and these are regardless of where you are in your job cycle. I don't care how old you are, whether you're just starting out or you're just finishing your career, you should always be looking to improve your skills. It's always a growth mindset, always a student. And then so if you're doing that, you're always improving. You can never be outpaced, replaced, or obsolete. And the next thing you need to do, if you're the type of growth mindset person, you're always a student, you're looking to make things better, positive attitude, doing a great job on doing a great work in the job, network and connect with people. If you're connecting with people at least once a month and going out for coffee, and let's say you have 10, 12 meetings a year with people, the whole purpose is not to sell them anything or do anything. It's just to connect. Hey, I'm here, you're here. What do I do? What do you do? And then can I connect with you to someone else that I know in the future? Maybe that person you have in the fifth month works with the same type of things that the person you met with in the first month, and then you can connect them. Or if someone says, "Hey, you know what? I'm looking to do this," and you're like, "Oh, I know somebody." Or let's say you lose your job and you need to look for a new one. You're going to have a network of people that you stay in contact with. So networking is very, very important. And lastly, and again, it doesn't matter where you are in your career, always be networking. And it doesn't have to just make sure it's not a sales thing. Lastly, I want to talk about a new job. You can, if you're in your job and you are increasing your skills, you're highly performing, you are doing well, your clients love you, and you feel that you should be worth more because you've looked at competitors and what they're paying their employees, perhaps you want to consider a new job. The problem that many companies create for themselves is that they will only increase, they'll have an HR policy where you can only have a 3 to 5% pay increase every year. It's like, okay, well, I've increased my pay by 3% every year. Inflation was 2%. The last couple of years, it was higher than that. But you just hired this person from outside the firm, and because they aren't capped by this increase in pay that you have for existing employees, you're now paying them more than I'm paying, and we're doing the same job. And so that's incredibly unfair. And what does it do? Because people often don't move for convenience or fear, or they're like, well, it's always better on, it always seems better on the other side, but when you get there, it's not actually as better. Let's take a minute and remember how much effort, time, and stress you're putting into your job. So if you need a new job to get a 10% raise and they're limiting you to 3, I say strongly consider that. There are other things like family, lifestyle, what are they going to ask? What else? The risk of being the new person, probation period, maybe they don't like, maybe it doesn't work out, whatever the case be. But consider that just because you have a pension doesn't mean you need to stay at that job for 30 years. Maybe it's in their better interest to keep you in a lower paying job in that company with a pension because you're afraid to go for a new job. And consider for a moment, especially if it's a defined benefit pension plan, that if you have a defined benefit pension plan, that you're only going to be receiving a certain amount of cash flow every year. If you pass away, that cash flow, you might get some of it going to your spouse or survivor, or may get none of it, and the lump sum value at the end of it, no matter what age you die at, goes to stay inside the pension. And if there's a pension surplus, the company can strip that out. So who gets that money? Who's incentivized? They keep your pay lower, and at the end of the day, especially on a defined benefit pension plan, they have that ability to just take that cash back. It is so long-term incentive for the company to keep you there on small increases than having you jump ship. So strongly consider jumping ships. Um, Keeping money. If you're constantly increasing your money and your expenses stay the same, you're going to keep more. You can also reduce expenses, look to reduce your cell phone bill, whatever it is. You know, other people, there's a saying in there, stop spending on dumb things. Other people, their whole job, marketing firms, are just out there to get you to spend. They're trying to take your money and give it to their clients so that they can do a good job analyzing you and trying to open up your wallet psychologically. You're you have to raise the bar. So if you're spending money, you need to say, you know what? I am worth it. I am worth more than this money. My money was hard to earn. It took me 40 hours a week to earn this, and it was a lot of stress. I missed time away from my family, and I was exhausted at the end of the day. I'm going to keep my money because I'm more important than this company that's trying to get my money for their product. I am more important. You have to raise your self worth. You have to raise the value of you and the value of your money. And then remember that you are building for tomorrow. So many things I buy thinking that they're going to make me happy today. When in reality, I look at it a year from now and I see them around my house and there's a bunch of junk I've accumulated. Now I have to get rid of it and I shouldn't have spent that money in the first place. Raise your bar. Don't spend money on things that don't bring real value. If you've ever heard of The Minimalists, they came out with a movie. The first one is the best movie, in my opinion. It's not about being a minimalist and having nothing. What it's about is having a high amount of value in the things that you do spend on. So if you're going to spend on something and it doesn't absolutely bring you a lot of value over a long period of time, do not spend on that. If it does, then do spend on it, assuming you have the money. So that's one way to look at it. It's just a different way to go. Check out that movie. I encourage a lot of our clients to go take a look at it. There's other things we do. There's one in particular, personality test that they go through, and it just helps them better articulate what they are reaching towards rather than running away. And we can help with all this stuff. We have conversations on jobs, on pay incentives, on all this stuff, because that's comprehensive wealth advisory. Okay, let's go back to this. So if you're making money and you're keeping money, now you have money that you can actually grow. There's lots of different ways you can grow money, but I'm going to say this first. First off, there's no such thing as passive investing. There is no such thing as passive income. It always requires some sort of time, energy, or money to maintain. So even in stocks and bonds, even if you have a money manager, you should be challenging their thought process, not to be disrespectful, but to say, hey, what is this? Why am I here? What are your thoughts on this? What are the next steps? What are the risks that you're looking for? What are the pros that you're hoping to get out of the how you have my portfolio positioned right now? And that's the difference, right? That is not passive investing. You're still meeting with someone. You're making sure that they're in alignment with and building what you are looking to build. Perhaps real estate, you have to vet your tenants, you have to maintain that, you have to move cash around, you have to pay for property taxes, you have to maintain the property, repairs. It is not a passive investment. Although you're not there 40 hours a week, it will require time and effort and potentially money to maintain that asset. As long as you're getting a positive ROI, I have no problem with it. But really, it can come down to personality of the investor, as in, what are you looking for out of your lifestyle? So people are saying, I want to get into real estate, but they really don't want to manage stuff. They don't have the capacity or the desire to manage tenants. And I'm like, look, we can look for other things. You don't have to do real estate, but you can do real estate. Whatever suits your personality and your desire for your energy and your time input, then we can put your capital in there. And that's okay. And again, because we're licensed as a mortgage brokerage, you can also have conversations with us about that. What is it like? We can build it into your financial plan, what a rental property is like. Those are great. Maybe you're going to run your own company, or maybe you already run your own company, a private business. You have to look at the ROI, your return on investment. Are you going to strip money out? Are you going to put it in a holding company? What's your taxes on passive income inside your holding company? Small business tax deductions. Are you going to pay yourself personal income? If you're going to have personal income, how are you going to build wealth? And what money does it become advantage to leave it in the company versus take it out? What's your excess capital that you're not spending on? And again, the more you can keep from the money that you make, the more you can grow, the more options you have. Right. And as you're growing it and as you're keeping it, you need to think about protection. So protecting money can happen at all points when you're making, keeping, and growing money. You can look at protecting your money from your income, right? If you get disabled or a critical illness, you might have to take time off of your job. You might have, some pay continuation there, but you might not. You need to think about time for continuation. You also don't want to end up, if we're talking about a flywheel and building momentum, what you don't want to do, and I've seen this happen a couple times where people say, well, you know what, I'll just pay for it. I have cash. I don't believe in insurance, and that's fine. But when the bad event does happen, they blow through a lot of their savings, and then their retirement plans get blown out. They're like, well, that's just how life is. I'm like, but we could have protected you. We could have protected your finances. Imagine having a critical illness, getting back to work, and still having your financial plan on track, or being disabled, or your spouse passes away, and your kids and your house is all taken care of in a cost-effective way. Or maybe there's something where you're at risk for getting sued, and we can creditor protect some of the cash using insurance products such as participating in whole life policies or segregated funds or things like that. And so each individual circumstance is different, but you need to think about what's most appropriate, because if you're doing a great job making money, you're keeping the money you make, you're growing it, and then all of a sudden something happens and you lose it all, you've done that for nothing. So you need to be thinking about making, keeping, growing money, growing and protecting money all the time. These are really, really important concepts. Why don't people do this? Well, because it's easier to just stay the same. If I'm just here and I just stay the same, then what does it matter? Like, people just, it's just easier not to. And so they sit and they stay and nothing changes and nothing gets better, and they complain, or maybe they don't complain, but they know they should be doing something and they just haven't done it. My job is to get people to do stuff and to act. And so we get set up 6-month goals, and we talk to people throughout those 6 months and say, hey, do you have a will and power of attorney in place? Do you have this in place? Do we have this? Do we need to change your monthly contributions? Let's get it done. And that's part of it. Someone keeping you accountable. That's a really important part. The other thing that happens is that, aside from just not doing anything, because that's easy, is they don't want to upset their current advisor or their bank. Or maybe they have loyalty because they had their child account there when they were there, and they feel that loyalty is an important characteristic trait. Well, maybe that's true, but maybe that's not the best place for them now. What they need is more help, more advice. People deserve help and advice. Like I said, making money is difficult. It's not easy. You spend a lot of time and effort and energy making money. If you're not getting the advice you need to find somewhere that gives you the advice that is going to give you what you need. And it's easy if you just act. Maybe have a couple interviews with people. You don't like any of them? Forget it. Don't change anything. But at least you tried, and you can revisit it in another year or 6 months or 3 months and say, you know what? I'll have another couple conversations in 3 months from now. Tell the people you talk to, no thanks. It's not a good fit. That's fine. It's okay. It's your money. You deserve good people in your corner. Now, the other thing is people often forget. They will go to work and they will balance budgets and projects to the penny. They will say, you know what, we're not going to spend on this because it's not in the budget this quarter. We're just going to go without. We're going to make a difficult decision. We're going to do this. Well, the thing that we need to keep in mind is that they'll do that for a company that they work for, but they won't do it for themselves. People work harder for money. More time, more energy, more effort, more accuracy, more difficult decisions are done for people that they work for than their own money. And that has to stop. We have to work just as hard for our own money as you do for someone else's money. So your money is just as important as managing someone else's. You have to put yourself on equal footing as your employer. And the reality is, as I talked about, if your company has a difficult decision to make and they need to cut expenses, they will cut employees. There's no doubt about it. They're not going to keep you. They will talk to you about being a loyal employee, and they want that as an employee. But when it comes time for them to make a decision and what's in their best interest, they're going to make that decision because that's their job. And so don't fall into that trap that loyalty is something that the employee should do, but not the company. You need to do what's right for you and always act in your best interest. And if anyone isn't acting in your best interest, then that's a problem. And you need to change that person out for someone who is acting in your best interest. So how do you get the flywheel of freedom? The financial freedom that we're looking for? Well, the first step, come and talk to us. Put a plan together, we start looking at things, making decisions, we set a course, we look at what can be done to make things better. How do we optimize things, make things more efficient, reduce taxes? How do we increase savings for you? How do we increase your pay? How do we have these conversations? Just having conversations in general is so incredibly helpful. And so this is really important. So talk to us. We'll put a plan together. That's more than just an analysis of, hey, here's where you're at. This is what your time and income can look like. That's not a plan. That's just gathering information and putting some projections forward. Having a plan is putting the next steps in place. What you need to do is say, here's the next 3 things I'm going to work on over the next 6 months. And my advisor is going to hold me accountable. Do I have a will and power of attorney in place? No. How do I get one? Well, I don't know one. Can you recommend one? Sure. I'll talk to them and maybe someone else. It's not as bad as you think to get a will and power of attorney in place. It's not as grim as a topic. It is not as expensive as you likely think. And lastly, getting it done feels so good. It is such a relief to know that your family's has a plan in place in case you pass away. Or if you're incapacitated, that someone can handle your affairs for you. We don't want to be leaving the people that are around us in a difficult situation. So things like that, it's really easy to get them done. And it is, like I say, it is such a relief. Maybe it's about changing the amount that you contribute on a regular basis to your plan. So that's the keeping part of it. We're going to look at how that your individual retirement, your individual investment accounts match up with your lifestyle. What do you need for cash flow? What are your risks in your job, and how do we offset that with your investment portfolio? Are they complementary or are they overweighted in some area? We need to go through that analysis. Can we reduce costs inside the investment portfolio? Can we reduce costs inside your mortgage? Can we save you cash anywhere? And that's the whole thing. So at least revisit and revise these plans and action items that you're putting in place on a regular basis. For us, it's every 6 months. We're going to likely talk with you more often than that. And we want to make sure that our clients are making headways. And they want to make sure that they're moving forwards always. And you get that momentum in place by putting in this financial flywheel. And it helps you so that you can take some time and be like, okay, let's have a conversation over here. Yeah, we'll go deal with wills and estates. That's fine. We'll go deal with that. The rest of it's on autopilot. There's some momentum going on with this financial flywheel. You know that even if there's some disruption, you could do that. If you're like, hey, I want to look at putting in a kitchen, we're going to spend a little bit of cash. What does that mean for our retirement? Or we're going to go on a trip, or we're going to buy a rental property, or we're going to do something like that. What does this mean for my financial future? Revisit and revise it. Have conversations with your advisor on a regular basis. And hopefully that advisor is us. So if we can help you with your financial freedom, just reach out. Go to tkdalewealth.com. Again, it's tkdalewealth. D is in Delta for Dale. And reach out to us. There's our phone number, there's email, and I look forward to chatting with you. These are some of the things that I really love doing. I'd love to tell you a bit more about our story and how we came to be, some of the things that we do, some of the great things that we offer people. And we are largely independent. So I'm a very lucky person to be in the position that I'm in. I appreciate all the clients that I work with, and it's fantastic work. So I'm a very lucky person, and I appreciate you listening to this seminar, whether you're on podcasts, video, or wherever you're getting this through. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.